Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7. We're at episode number 1562 right now, and as promised, a brief but incomplete history of bars and cantinas and such in the Star Wars stories, particularly in Star Wars movies and television. I mean, bars show up all the time in books and in the comics too, so there's that. But as far as the movies and TV shows go, it's just fun to note, at least, for my own amusement and hopefully for yours too, that these stories that are ostensibly for kids, and, when talking about Star Wars Resistance recently, they're talking about the fact that the primary age target for that show is 6 to 12-year-olds, and yet there are scenes that take place in a bar. Well, it's funny how Star Wars just says, yep, let's bring the kids to the bar. Like, let's just do it. And it starts out right from the get-go. I mean, you've got Wars Cantina right at the beginning of the original Star Wars in 1977, where, of course, arms get cut off, and stormtroopers check on what's going on, and bounty hunters get shot, and yeah, very dangerous places that we're bringing our kids to through these cinematic experiences. And then we get the prequel trilogy, and interestingly enough, we did not go to a bar or a cantina in the first of the three prequel movies, but we did go to one in the second one, of course, in Attack of the Clones, where somebody tries to sell Obi-Wan Kenobi death sticks, and crazy shapeshifters start hunting Jedi, and arms get cut off there as well. And then we get the Clone Wars cartoon series. Now, I went through episode descriptions because I knew that there was one rather early on, and the earliest reference I could find, I think this is pushing it a little bit, but episode 11 of the first season of the Clone Wars is called Dooku Captured, and he's been captured by weak-way pirates, including Hondo Ohnaka, the infamous Hondo Ohnaka, and there is a pirate feast going on, which includes a bar scene where weak-way pirates are getting drunk. Try saying that 5 times fast. Weak-way pirates, weak-way pirates. And they actually try to drug the drinks of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, but they see it coming and go doo-doo-doo and switch the drinks, and the weak-way pirates end up falling over flat. So, not that that helps anything, but 11 episodes in. It doesn't take Star Wars Rebels quite as long to get into a bar. In fact, it's episode 8 of the first season of Star Wars Rebels. That would be Empire Day, if you're keeping score at home. And in that episode, they go to Old Joe's Pit. J-H-O. Old Joe's Pit. Sounds like a real lovely place. That is the first of more than a few cantinas they find themselves in, because, of course, what's a great place to find a contact? It's perfect. It's a cantina. Like, that's exactly where you want to go, to the seedy underworld, if you're going to find some underworld contact, or, need to keep things real quiet if you're finding a rebellion contact or things like that. And I've been handed a note by Kato, our studio intern, that says that it's actually Old Joe's Pit Stop, not Old Joe's Pit. Apparently I'm doing Old Joe's Pit Stop a disservice by calling it just a pit straight up. Anyway, so that was in November of 2014 that episode came out, the 8th episode in Season 1 of Star Wars Rebels. So that then puts it before the sequel movies came out. And of course we were in Maz Kanata's castle in The Force Awakens, and there's a bar inside there. Surprise, surprise, one of the many similarities, shockingly, between The Force Awakens and the original Star Wars, but be that as it may, there you go, already in the first movie. It took a little bit longer for the bar to show up inside the sequel movies compared to the original trilogy, but there it is. And yes, in the first movie. And then we have Star Wars Resistance, which, of course, as we've discussed already a bit, happened immediately. The first episodes we have scenes in a bar. In fact, actually, the first half of that 2-episode series premiere, the 2-episode movie? Nah, not so much. But anyway, yeah, the very first episode, the first half of The Recruit, we have a bar scene, which also results in a bar brawl also. And, I'm trying to think about that. There's, I guess you could say it's the wildest of all the bar scenes that happens as far as any of these go. I mean, there are a couple of fights in Wars Cantina in the original A New Hope. There is a little bit of an altercation in Attack of the Clones, but Definitely it is not as crazy as what happens in the Resistance, where it is a full-on, like, this is a old-time Western, things getting thrown, punches getting thrown, you know, all sorts of people getting, you know, roped into this fight because they're not supposed to be getting hit with things, and yet they're getting hit with things, and so everything just goes nuts. And let's not forget the standalone movies, all right? So, of course, in Solo, A Star Wars Story, we do have the Fort Ipso situation. That's the place on Vandor where they go find Lando and hire him for the job. And, you know, that's a whole bar scene there. But Rogue One, I think, might actually be the only movie where we do not see some sort of overt bar or cantina scene. That's not to say that they aren't in places where those kinds of establishments must certainly be, whether it's on the Ring of Kafrane where Cassian meets his contact, or where, you know, in the marketplace on Jeddah. And I'm sure Saw Gerrera's partisans are probably brewing their own alcohol someplace. We know from other Star Wars stories, or at least you know, movies and TV shows, but in books and comics and whatnot, that pilots are known for making their own alcohol. And so somewhere on Yavin 4, I'm sure Starfighter pilots are consuming their own homemade hooch. But we don't actually get to see any of that in Rogue One. So I think that would probably be the lone exception to the rule. So there you go, a rundown of how important cantinas, bars, and other drinking establishments are to the Star Wars universe, that they get introduced pretty quickly in segments of larger stories and whatnot. And that is going to do it for today's episode. If you are not subscribed to the show wherever you happen to be catching it, then hey, please subscribe. If you're not yet supporting the show, then I hope you'll consider doing that too at patreon.com/SW7x7. For now, though, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2018 Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it!